Hey gang, what's up? Aaron, Canadian Looney. We're going to jump over to Power Play in Politics with Vassie Capellos. She's got Premier of Manitoba, Wab Kinew. I've never done a story on Wab Kinew. Don't really care for the guy. You can let me know in the comments if there's maybe a detail I'm missing. I don't know. Doesn't do it for me. Anyhow, let's cross over and check out Vassie and Wab Kinew. Let's get into it.
Family to a Russian home, you gotta grab that rotisserie chicken, a prepared salad, and a case of bubbly. Guess what? No more tax.
If he actually did his own grocery shopping, he would know that a lot of grocery items are already exempt from PST. But maybe under him, you will save 7 cents on a can of pop, or you'll save 63 cents on a chicken rotisserie, honorable speaker.
It is budget day in Manitoba, and the provincial government has unveiled a suite of new measures aimed at addressing affordability. Notably, if the budget passes, there'll be a removal of provincial tax on all food from grocery stores beginning July 1st, should the budget pass by then. The budget also includes an increase on property and renter tax credits and free transit for kids. It all comes with a projected deficit of $498 million. Wab Kinew is the Premier of Manitoba, and he's with us live right now. Hi, Premier. It's good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just laughing at our opposition leader calling it chicken rotisserie or whatever. So that was awesome.
Well, okay, let's pick up on that point, because I think certainly
100%.
I heard your interview this morning about removing the PST, and it garnered a lot of reaction, even all the way over here in Ottawa. I heard the opposition's criticism there, which is essentially this will not make a salient difference in the affordability issues, for the affordability issues that people in Manitoba face. What is your response to that criticism? Does he have a point?
Definitely not. Very out of touch. The average family, $100 you'll save off of this change that we're making here today. Plus a big $1,700 assist on your property taxes. Plus transit is going to be free for people under 18 in Manitoba. We're doing a lot. But just think about it. You're a busy parent. You're at work. You're rushing home to put food on the table. You grab one of those combos at the grocery store, whether it's Costco or Safeway, rotisserie chicken, a salad, a case of drinks. Right now, all of those things are taxed in Manitoba. And the grocery prices are hurting people, so we're taking action. And, you know, just to be clear, this is not the only step that we're taking. We're banning real estate covenants that are preventing competition in the grocery sector in Manitoba. We're banning predatory pricing, so online services that charge you a different price based on your personal data. We're banning that. We froze the price of milk. And then today, we are going to take the PST, take the provincial sales tax off of everything at the grocery store. And so for the average family out there in the suburbs that's been dealing with rising cost of living, this is one direct, real way that we can help. So we're very proud of it.
A couple of questions on that. Again, as soon as we heard that, we actually took it up to Parliament Hill, because you know that grocery prices are an issue for people right across this country. We asked the federal government, would you consider doing the same where GST is concerned? We only got one MP on the record who said, no, our focus is on the GST rebate that they announced, that they characterized that way and they announced earlier. Is this something you think the federal government should follow suit on, and have there been any conversations to that effect?
Well, I would encourage them to look at it, because we're talking about it being targeted at the grocery store, right? So this is something that is going to help the lowest income Manitobans. When you're talking about removing a sales tax on essential items like food from a grocery store, this is a progressive way to tackle the revenue system in our province, certainly. So I'd encourage the federal government to do it. I mean, just ask yourself, if you're that parent who's trying to rush home after work and put food on the table, you're dealing with the cost of living. If we save you $100 over the course of the year, buying something from the deli counter at the grocery store on the way home, isn't that making your life better? Isn't that helping you with the cost of living after everything's been going up and up and up? I mean, Donald Trump is not helping us with the rising cost of energy. So the fact that we can do one tangible thing in a sequence of other tangible things to increase competition, to drive down prices, and to lower costs directly, I think this is something that everybody should be trying to do for their citizens.
You mentioned the cost of energy, Premier, and I did want to ask you about that as well. I know that likely when this budget was being designed, the war in Iran had not necessarily broken out. We're only entering the fourth week, but it's had such a pronounced impact on gas prices on average across the country, but in Manitoba specifically over the last month. I think it was in January, as of January 1st, 2024, lifted the provincial portion of the gas tax for a year. Is that something that you should be considering, again, given what people are dealing with at the pump in your province?
Well, and then after that year, we reduced it permanently. So again, like our whole thing here in the Manitoba government is what are tangible ways that we can help people. And we might not be able to do everything all at once, but does saving you a little bit of money when you go to the gas station help? Yeah, a little bit. Does freezing the price of milk help? Yeah, that helps a little bit more. Does taking the tax off of prepared items, rotisserie chicken, salads from the grocery store, does that help? Yeah, that's a little bit more. Does a little bit of help for those people who are paying mortgages or rent with these tax credits and tax refunds that we announced today? Do those things help? Yeah. So again, the cost of living is such a big issue, and provincial government can't necessarily get its hand around everything. But by doing a little bit of action here, a little bit of action there, putting it all together, we're finding a real way to give people in Manitoba relief from high prices. And then adding the transit piece on top, I think, is another affordability measure for parents who won't have to buy a bus pass for their kids to get to school. But on top of that, it's good for the environment. And on top of that, it's going to be able to help future generation build that habit of using public transportation in a way that maybe we've been moving away from as a province. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can help with people's number one economic issue, which is affordability. And we're very, very proud to be showing that you can do that in a progressive way, to say we're giving help for lower income people, we're giving help for the middle class. And along the way, if you're somebody who's super wealthy, well, you've been successful and lucky in our society, so we're going to ask you to make a contribution so that those who need a bit more help can get that bit of assistance.
And I certainly wouldn't take away from all that you just laid out that your government is doing to address affordability. My question, though, was whether or not you would consider, given how quickly the price of gas has risen, another suspension. Not just the reduction that you mentioned happened after the overall suspension of the provincial portion, but whether you would consider that again.
The number one way we can lower gas prices right now is to stop this war in Iran. So let's stop the war in Iran. Donald Trump has no reason for this conflict. Nobody in Canada can explain it. The idea that we might be sending Canadians to help with the Strait of Hormuz, which was already open before this misguided war began, doesn't make any sense. So I would love to see gas prices go down. But the number one way that we can have cheaper gas prices in Canada right now, while still having revenue to pay for the health care that is the number one priority of Manitobans, is to end the war in Iran. So I would flip it back on the folks in Ottawa and say, let's end the war in Iran. And I'd flip it back on the folks in DC and say, let's end the war in Iran.
Let's just flip it.
I promise you, should anyone from the White House come on the show, that would be one of the first questions I would ask about the prospect of that. And certainly I have put many questions to the federal government around their own policy where that is concerned. But with great respect, Premier, it is not our decision about whether or not to start or end that war. That is the fact, the set of facts that we are dealing with, and that consumers, as a result, in your province and other provinces are dealing with as well. Am I to take from your answer, and I respect what you said, but am I to take from that right now you are not considering any suspension of the provincial portion of gas on a tax on gas? Pardon me.
I wouldn't say that. You know, like removing the gas tax in Manitoba is probably the best thing that a government in Manitoba has ever done in history. It just put real money back in people's pockets. The average blue-collar person who doesn't get involved in the theoretical discussions of talking heads and institutes and, you know, think tanks and stuff like that. It just helped real people be able to deal with the cost of living. So I would never rule it out. But the reality is we had $1.07 gasoline before Trump decided to try and distract from the Epstein files. Now we got $1.73 gas in the city of Winnipeg. So, I mean, should we starve provincial resources that we're going to go use to add 4,000 healthcare workers, as we announced today, or a new emergency room? Or should we just go to the cause of our economic problems, which is Donald Trump and his terrible war in Iran? Like, there is such a thing as a just war. This is not a just war. This is a dumb war. It needs to stop. That would help people with the cost of living.
Are you concerned at all about statements like that impacting negotiations that are going on right now that have a huge impact on the province's economy?
Getting
or do you feel like it should be said?
Were we getting a fair treatment from Donald Trump like prior to this moment? So let's just call it what it is. They started this war as a distraction from the Epstein files. There is no reason for this war. They want to talk about terrorism? Okay. Well, what about Saudi Arabia, the #1 exporter of terror in history? They want to talk about nuclear programs? Many other countries out there they could be going at. But they started this war as a distraction from a domestic political problem. And I don't think we as Canadians should be caught up in, the economic aftermath of that at the same time that we be asked to contribute to bailing them out of this issue. It doesn't make any sense to me.
It's pretty ridiculous for him to say and mislead people. He's on a legacy media, a paid for state media propaganda program. Some people are going to believe what he's saying. The Iran war, I don't believe, is about the Epstein files.
So I think that we should just call the situation as we see it and say, yeah, this is having a real impact on the cost of living in our country, and stop the war. Guess who else would benefit? Americans. American consumers would benefit from a lower cost of living as well, too.
Okay, I'm going to leave it on that note. I'm out of time. As always, I appreciate your time, Premier. Thanks for making it.
All right, gang, we're going to drop over to some committee action from here. That's what we're going to do. We've got some great pieces. This next clip with John Barlow is unbelievable. Let's get into it. In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups: the globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
Witnesses as well. Ms. Oatway, I'm going to start with you and your comment on what you would like to see this committee do is reassess the criteria that Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada used in the closures of these facilities. I guess my argument was there is no criteria at all. And my first question to you as a research scientist, are you surprised with the loss of more than 600 science and research jobs in AAFC that the government's own chief science advisor was not consulted on this decision whatsoever?
Thank you for the question. We were very surprised. We understand fiscal responsibility. We live with that all the time. However, a lot of this is not only the research being done, but our ability to register new varieties in Canada. So losing key positions like a pathologist position, an agronomist, a weed scientist, or even the breeding seed increases that were located in Indian to the fields. So we needed a much longer time to accommodate those changes and to come up with alternatives for that.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Pollock, Mr. Fransui, Mr. Pollock, you're talking about the importance of setting priorities in the decision-making with the closure of these research centers. And I just want to read off some numbers to you and just your opinion on whether or not this is the right priority. Over the last 5 years, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada spent more than $16 million on management consulting, $22 million on Beans for Empowerment for women in the Democratic Republic of Congo, $20 million on building equitable, climate-resilient African bean and insect.
Listen to this list. It is so crazy. We're going to back it up 10 seconds just so everybody catches all of these crazy projects that they've invested millions in while they're shutting down funding for farming research in Canada. It's ridiculous.
Dollars on Beans for Empowerment for women in the Democratic Republic of Congo, $20 million on building equitable, climate-resilient African bean and insect sectors, $16.3 million on leveraging equality for gender-just poultry, $10 million on gender-responsive and climate-smart products for the cocoa industry, $8.2 million on gender-just low-carbon rice, and $3 million on scaling up climate information for women farmers in Nicaragua. They lost $8.5 million on a bankrupt cricket farm, $8 million on converting a barn to a storage unit at Rideau Hall, These are just a couple of many different programs that that funds went to that could have kept these research centers operating for more than a decade. In your opinion, Mr. Francois or Mr. Pollock, do you feel that these are the right priorities for a government that should be focusing on food security and food affordability?
I guess we have to arm wrestle for the answers, but certainly we could. A pretty easy no. We're faced with more challenges than ever before, and you didn't mention anything about trade disruptions. We're undergoing a pretty tough battle with our American friends in CUSMA, and all these things. We need to enable our farmers to maintain that productivity. That number that I gave you, going underneath 1%, we're not keeping up, and the rest of our competitors globally are surpassing us. Have already surpassed us. RBC recently provided a number that we need to increase our spending by 36%, and we were going down 15%. That's a gap of 50% just to catch up. So by all means, the vast majority of everything you mentioned, we need to be cycling that back into our research infrastructure.
And just to put a number on Mr. Pollock's comment about productivity, going from 1% productivity growth to from 2% down to 1% of productivity growth in agriculture is a loss of more than $30 billion in cash receipts in the pockets of farmers. So this is a very real number when you see that loss in production with Canadian farmers. And I'm hoping that Ms. Otway is not freezing anymore, but I did want to ask a question regarding that loss of varietal registration. When 80% of the wheat and barley varieties grown in Canada come directly from AFC research, and losing AFC as a partner in those co-op registration studies, what are the consequences of losing AFC as a partner in those co-op research, and would the ability to register new varieties be impacted if CFIA or PMRA do not see AFC as a partner in that research? Is there an impact to that or consequences to that?
Absolutely. And we're seeing some of those right now. We're getting ready to put the crop in the ground, and we are coming up with spots across for co-op registration, which means that varieties that we develop here in Lacombe don't have the opportunity to have production data in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, or even in Ontario. So right now we're looking at how can we fill these holes? Can we make sure that stable across all of Western Canada? And we're being hit with some options to grow those varieties with increased cost now, whereas before we always had universities.
Doesn't seem to be any layoffs here in Ottawa to the bigger bureaucracy, but it's all to the frontline folks. I'm just wondering if you had a few more thoughts on that.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Darcy, just so you know, I'm Darren Warren's kind of my lesser-known cousin, but apparently more famous, so that's okay. That'll just feed his ego a little bit. But anyways, thank you for the question, Mr. Potzer. We've seen this in Saskatchewan, Western Canadian agriculture for the past 30 years. I had a previous career where I worked a little bit with PFRA and AAFC. There was the same level of cutoffs in, I believe it was 89, 88. And they laid off, 20% across the board. But in Western Canada, the 10 years before that, they didn't hire any new people. And in Eastern Canada, in management office policy jobs, they increased their population by 50%. And then you cut, and it's not the same. And this is what we're seeing again in Western Canada. The people that do the relevant research that we need to grow the crops, to feed the world, to sequester carbon, and do all the good things we're supposed to do, the boots on the ground that give us the technology we need to survive, they cut, and they just have more middle management.
Yeah, to the Western wheat growers, the consultation piece, I think, is a big part of it. I'm going to read you just a quick quote from the departmental plan, and this came directly from the Ag Minister's mouth. To position the sector to capture these opportunities, we are beginning to lay the groundwork for the next 5-year policy framework set to begin in 2028. Together with governments and industry stakeholders at the table, we'll work to keep our sector on a strong growth curve, feed the world, and build the strongest economy in the G7. I'm hearing from you guys that wasn't actually the case, that there was no consultation. And I've been hearing repeatedly over and over again, there is no plan. And to say that, in 2028, we're going to do something, but here in 2026, 2025, they're doing what they're doing now. So how does that work for you guys in the industry when you see that statement from the minister, but then the action that you're seeing on the ground is completely different?
I'll speak to it and then Daryl can add anything in, but numbers don't lie. So productivity is going down, sure, but our competitiveness is also going down. We were also 7th once upon a time for ag output, 5th, now we're 7th, and we're sliding towards 9th. So all of the leading indicators that we currently have are going in the wrong direction, and this has been happening for years now. So how that turns around on a dime, I don't see that happening. And the consultation that should be happening really is around what are going to be the next technologies, how do we get more and better varieties into our hands. And the other really key indicator is that although we've experienced increases in the volume of goods, they haven't been increasing in value. So although that we're putting more through the ports, for example, the value coming back to the farmers aren't necessarily there for anything outside of yield. So yeah, I would absolutely agree. We have a bigger problem on our hands, and that doesn't seem like a rational assumption.
Mr. Potzer, can I jump in again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Typically SARM wouldn't be the organization arguing for more government, right? That's not typically where we come from. But this is a group, these research stations have proven to be effective in Western Canada and make producers money. And we're just really confused as to why something that's successful is cut. Why was there no consultation, like you said? Why aren't we cutting something that's not working for the taxpayers of Canada?
Would it be safe to say that the cuts that are happening are going to have a severe impact on frontline delivery? And the reason I'm asking this question is we've heard from many other government departments that they can go through this and there will be no impact to service delivery. But from what I understand, there will be an impact to service delivery for farmers, for producers, and for Canadians across this country, correct?
There will be a 100% impact on farmers if this goes through, without a doubt.
Thank you. I got about 20 seconds left. Ms. Valesta, can you just talk quickly about the different soil zones in Saskatchewan?
Yeah. Can everyone hear me now? I restarted my computer. Hopefully that gets us into the better hearing. Am I good to go? I'll just keep talking. I just wanted to pop in on this question and answer on the wheat aspect. The wheat is at a precipice of, we're at a fine balance where we have to produce quality grain. And as farmers, we know that because that grain is used as an improver wheat for our markets. And we need those markets in order to be able to grow wheat on our farms, and to be able to access those markets, we need the varieties. And we've been delivering that.
All right, gang, we're going to skip over on that one. We're going to drop in and check out Michael Cooper. We haven't had Michael Cooper on the show in a while, and he's always entertaining.
Thank you so much, Mr. Perot. I will now turn to Mr. Cooper for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Perot. The rogue so-called longest ballot committee is at it again, this time targeting the by-election in Terrebonne. As of this morning, I noticed that there were 42 independent candidates that have been approved or certified to run in Terrebonne out of 48 or 49 candidates. I understand that the window for certification is up until 2 p.m. tomorrow that Elections Canada has, with the filing deadline having been yesterday. So approximately how many candidates can we expect, fake candidates, candidates that this committee has put forward?
So the count is final, and we have in total 48 candidates for Terrebonne.
And 42 are independent.
I believe that's the case, but
okay.
The total is what matters from my perspective.
Right. Well, 48 candidates, 42 that are independents. We know that the longest ballot committee's activities have created barriers for certain voters Their actions have made it more difficult for voters to handle and mark their ballot. Voters have experienced longer wait times, and it has taken a lot longer to count ballots and get election results. So given all of those issues that have arisen in past by-elections and elections, what steps is Elections Canada taking to mitigate potential disruptive effects of the longest ballot committee?
So thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I have decided yesterday, in light of the final count, to opt for the approach that we took in Battle River Crowfoot and have a write-in ballot. This is an approach that did work well in the last time that we used it. It proved to be satisfactory. 97% of voters found it easy to use, and we had very few complaints about the use of that ballot. So we felt that this was a better experience for the voters in general. As in Battle River Crowfoot, there will be a list of candidates presented in two formats. It'll presented alphabetically, as well as on one side and on the other side by candidates affiliated with parties or endorsed by parties and independent. So that allows voters to navigate a complex information in the manner that best suits them. And that, again, was used in Battle of River Crowfoot, and it worked well.
You said it worked well. I would agree with you that it works a lot better than a meter or meter and a half long ballot. But I would assume that it would still present difficulties for some voters, those who might have physical disabilities, those with literacy challenges, among other impediments. So I would take it that this is not an ideal situation. It's the best that can be done in a set of difficult circumstances because of the malicious activities of the longest ballot committee. Is that fair?
It is the lesser evil, is the way I would put it.
Okay, thank you for that. And just moving on to a different topic associated with the longest ballot committee and a complaint that had been put forward by Mr. Davies, who appeared before this committee, Ryan Davies. He had submitted a complaint on July 25th to Elections Canada. He raised the matter of his complaint when he appeared before this committee. When you came subsequent to his appearance, you said you first learned of it upon him testifying at committee, but that when you followed up as to where the complaint had gone, it was caught by a security filter.
Yeah.
Now, you further testified that the physical complaint itself was not transferred to the Commissioner of Elections Canada, but assured the committee that the Commissioner was seized of the complaint. However, in an answer to an undertaking you subsequently provided to the committee, you indicated that the report or the complaint had in fact been transferred to the Commissioner of Elections Canada sometime between July 31st and August 11th. So there is an inconsistency or a discrepancy between what you first said, that it wasn't physically transferred, to your later undertaking that it in fact was transferred to the Commissioner of Elections Canada. So can you explain?
I'd have to go back. Again, I don't want to mislead the committee in any way, shape, or form. What I can say is that all of the relevant information was made available to the commissioner. She is aware, of course, of Mr. Davies. She has the opportunity to reach out to him and him to her, and that the controls in place to make sure that no complaint is ever lost or omitted have been implemented, so that there are regular hourly checks on the filter, if we can call it that, on the security check, so that it doesn't go unattended.
So there were now hourly checks, but there were not hourly checks.
There were not.
There were not. Were there any measures in place before to monitor the security filter?
There were measures, but it had to be prompted to a supervisor in order to, so the person disposing of a complaint or not looking at it and not referring it, that decision could be made alone without necessarily the check of a supervisor. Now it has to go through a supervisor. So no complaint that is put in the filter is disposed of or not followed up on unless a supervisor gives it a nod. And that would be the case, for instance, if there's absolutely no plausible offense under the Act, that's the subject matter of the complaint, or it's irrelevant to, in fact, the activities of the agency, which happens.
Let me just ask you. Let me just ask you this: were any complaints identified that were trapped in the security filter that were not then forwarded to the Commissioner of Elections Canada in a timely manner?
A very quick answer.
Yes, and that's why we have corrections. I believe she has all the information relevant to those complaints, but it's quite possible that some complaints could not have been transferred.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Perreault, I just want to pick up where we left off to make sure that I understand your testimony correctly. With regards to the security filter, it's my understanding that there were some complaints that were caught by the security filter that were not identified because Elections Canada did not have in place processes to monitor the security filter and consequently were not forwarded on to the Commissioner of Elections Canada. Do I have that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So how many complaints were caught by the security filter and not passed on to the Commissioner of Elections Canada?
I would have to come back to the committee. I'm happy to do that.
Are we talking about a handful, or are we talking about...
I'm not aware of others than the one that we mentioned. As I said, the protocols have been revisited so that there's closer scrutiny on that.
And do you know when these, dating back to when? Because presumably this is not a new issue, the security filter.
Correct. So as I said in my I'm not sure what was in the letter in my testimony, but we had protocols in place, and we now have much stricter protocols in place following the last election to make sure that we don't lose sight of any complaints.
Well, since there were certain complaints that were caught, have any been transferred since the check had been done on the security filter to the Commissioner of Elections Canada?
The complaints that would have been disposed of are not retrievable. Okay? I believe, and again, I believe that this is the case for the one from Mr. Davies, though we know that all of the, because there were several sources of information from Mr. Davies and other, including social media. So the information that he had was transferred, but the physical complaint itself, I believe, was not transferred and has been disposed of at the time. That's the best of my recollection.
In the case of his complaint, but what about other complaints?
I'm not aware of any other complaints, but I cannot assure you of that at this point.
Okay. So can you undertake to provide this committee with any additional complaints that were caught by the security screen that were not identified when they date back to, what their status is now, including when and if they were transferred to the Commissioner of Elections Canada, and if those complainants have been informed that their complaints to Elections Canada went into a black hole, because that's precisely what would have happened. Will you undertake to do that?
I'll undertake to look into that. I think it's likely not possible for the following reasons. There's a judgment that is made in examining that security filter as to the relevance of a complaint. In the context of election, we get all kinds of complaints. Complaints about a news outlet being unfair, a politician being rude or inappropriate, that have nothing to do with our mandate or the mandate of the commissioner. And so if those kinds of complaints...
Asking about complaints that Elections Canada is looking at, that's not the issue here. The issue here is that complaints went into, or may have gone into, a black hole. In other words, they were not acted upon. That is the issue here.
If those complaints are disposed of because they are irrelevant, they are judged to be irrelevant to the mandate, then I can't have a trace. So, and if I do have a number, this number would include, and again, I'll look into it, is my understanding this number would include all of those complaints that are not germane to our mandate. And there would be no way of reopening those complaints to examine. There's a judgment made in the thousands of complaints that we receive. Some of them go into filter for security reasons. I'll look into that to try to answer as best as I can. But if the judgment is that this is not a relevant complaint and it's disposed of, then that's the end of that story.
Well, it seems to be less than desirable that we have complaints that went into a black hole. We don't know how many. We don't know whether, in fact, they were not germane and therefore supposedly disposed of, or whether they, in fact, were germane and not attended to, and who, by the way, was making a determination as to whether the complaint was germane or not germane, when it's not even within the jurisdiction of your office to deal with complaints. That falls within the jurisdiction of the Commissioner of Elections Canada. Why aren't all those complaints passed on to her office?
If any complaint that seemingly falls into her jurisdiction would normally be transferred. We're aware of one situation where it was not, but where all of the information was transferred. But we do get many, many other complaints that are not relevant to my mandate or her mandate, and these would be disposed of. Now, we may have, you listed, Mr. Cooper, a long list of questions, may have answers to some of them, maybe not others, and I said I will look into it and try to inform the committee to the best of my ability.
Thank you. No, thank you. We're well over. Mr. Cram, 6 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for joining us today. Mr. Perot, in your opening statement, you talked a little bit about the by-election in Terrebonne. I'd just like to follow up on that a little bit. So I understand that that particular by-election is going to have write-in ballots, the same system that was used in Battle River Crowfoot. Could you just explain a little bit about how that works? In particular, what happens if there's an I not dotted or a T not crossed or a minor spelling mistake in the candidate's name?
Yes, a very good question. As was the case then, variations in name, spelling, or errors are not problematic. They are not fatal flaw. The important thing is that there could be a clear identification of the intent of the voter. I can tell you that in Battle River Crowfoot, the rejection rate was 0.41%, which is one of the lowest we've ever seen. It's much lower than the national average on regular ballots with a checkbox, which is typically around 1%. So it was effective. Hopefully, it will be as effective then. So there is a very, very low rejection rate.
Okay, so but more than zero. Okay, but my concern is that in Battle River Crowfoot, the result was a bit of a landslide. In Terrebonne, the reason for the by-election is because of one vote. Are we not setting ourselves up for more opportunities for disputes in the actual counting of the ballots and even yet another by-election based on the change in the voting system?
So I would not use language setting ourselves up. I think we have good controls in place. It is possible that it's going to be a tight race. It's possible that there will be rejected ballots. There always are. But there were more rejected ballots in Battle River Crowfoot in the general election with the traditional ballot than there were with the write-in ballots. And some of them, apologies, some of these may be protest votes. We can't assume that they're all mistakes or improperly marked ballots.
And can you provide any more insight? Like, I don't understand why the reject rate would be higher for just marking an X versus writing someone's name. Like, could you explain why that would be possible? Is it all protests, do you think, or were there maybe fewer disputes in the by-election for some other reason?
I mean, it's a fascinating area of study. The rejection rates vary considerably between provinces. We know that for a fact, and that's hard to explain, though there are some explanations. There are typically two reasons to reject a ballot: if there's more than one mark, or if the mark is outside of the circle. Courts have tended, but there's no uniformity, to accept more than one mark if the intent is clear. So if they write off, for example, all of candidates, they scratch them off and they put an arrow and say, this is my choice, or they say error and scratch one and they say, here is my choice, they tend to accept that. but not consistently. Conversely, they tend to reject marks outside the ballot, and we saw that in Newfoundland, in Terra Nova, even though the intent is clear. So that's an area that Parliament may want to reconsider, because we don't have consistency among the judges, in some cases within the same judge. There are all kinds of factors that play into that. In Newfoundland, voters provincially mark that there's no circle, and so you can understand why there may be that tendency to use the same way of voting. All that to say, I really don't know exactly. We can't predict exactly how it's going to go.
So then, can you elaborate on what is being done to ensure a greater degree of consistency of accepting and rejecting ballots?
So that goes to the training, but again, the area that I'm concerned with is the inconsistency among judges and between those who do the count and the judges. So if we had consistency among the judges, we could instruct our poll workers in a given way. But without that consistency, it's very hard to do. We tend to be closer to the rule than the judges are, but that's a general trend. We in the case of Battle River and again in Terrebonne, we will provide additional training for the counting as we did, and that may well explain why it was such a low rejection rate. We did provide additional training both to the poll workers, but also additional information and instruction to the voters. So there was a high level of awareness around that election on how to vote and how to count those
Okay.
votes.
Well, that perhaps explains the lower rejection rate, but that's speculation, of course. So at this committee, we've had many discussions about the longest ballot committee and proposed changes to the signature sheets for becoming a candidate. Would you be able to table the signature sheets for the Terrebonne election or the Terrebonne by-election to this committee?
Certainly. They are publicly available, and so
Okay.
we will make them available to the committee.
Okay, very good. Mr. Chair, how am I doing for time?
20 seconds left.
20 seconds left. Okay, well, in that case, I would like to thank the witnesses for their time and their insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome here. Thanks for coming. Obviously, we're kicking off the study of the whole CAP renewal program. BRM is one of those components. So there's 4 more to go. I've got some stuff we'll get to science and innovation, probably not today. I want to start in on the BRM. And as has been already put on the record, crop insurance, agri insurance is the largest component of that from the spending. It's probably been the most successful as well, given its longevity compared to the other programs as well. So that's where I want to start in. And very shortly, we will get into the weeds as well. But agri-insurance is one of the first that really addresses risk on the farm. It's used by producers to address their risk. Now, governments, when they also deliver those programs, take on risk. So from an AAFPC perspective, it's funded 60-40 with the provinces. And with most crop insurance plans, it's 60-40 government producer, so 36-24-40, with the government picking up the admin. AAFC is the risk split for delivering the programs, because in theory, we're dealing with weather risk, market risk, all sorts of other risks that impact under the program design. Does AAFC feel that they also carry 60% of the risk of the delivery of the program?
As I mentioned earlier, we ensure that the programs are actuarially sound. And so the idea is the premium should cover the indemnities. And in the past, the majority of the provinces have built up a surplus. Though the prairie provinces in particular, with the last 2 drought years, got hit fairly hard. Some provinces actually purchase reinsurance, so with third-party multinational reinsurers, and so they either do stop loss or quota share. And then the federal government can also offer a backstop. So we also can act as a reinsurer for the provinces.
Monsieur Epp. My time is up, but I will continue exactly on this theme in the next round.
Parfait. Dans 5 minutes.
Thank you. Okay.
Vous avez des données.
Is the government considering reversing this policy at all?
So just a point of clarification. So under the advanced payments program, advances cannot be provided to related entities. So if they're using the same home address, the same equipment, there's one advance.
Operations.
Well, there's a test for relatedness.
Okay.
And so there was more a question of ensuring that the administrators were administering the program in consistent with the existing rules.
Right. Okay, let's get back to agri-insurance and reinsurance. As has been put on the record, the federal government provides an oversight or a mechanism prior to, as a contingent of 60% financing of a program, even though they're designed and delivered provincially. The hammer is at the federal level if the design is to be approved in order to attract the 60% co-payment. Is that correct?
As long as it's actuarially sound, it gets approved.
Right. So if it's been actuarially sound, and obviously both parties have been, would it not follow that when things go to somewhere in the handbasket, that both the federal and the provincial governments carry some of the risk to the program itself?
So the provinces sit on the funds.
Right.
And so when those funds are drawn down, they can then borrow from the federal government.
Right. And I believe you characterize that as a reinsurance program, but I think what you just stated is more accurate, is there's a perhaps interest rate reduced loan program. And the example of Alberta in the last couple of years is exactly what's shown, where they've kind of gone through about $5 billion in funds, or was it $5 billion in claims, in a deficit position.
Yeah.
And now, are forced to access the federal program. So it really is a loan problem. But my point in all this is that the entire risk of the fund or of the outcome of the programs lies with the provinces. Is that a fair statement?
The risk is captured in their financial statements.
Correct. So when the provinces go to address some of that risk through the use of private reinsurance programs, my understanding, here's where I'm open to be corrected, is that AAFC has been less than enthusiastic about using that tool at the provincial level to address the risk to provincial treasuries.
So there's a cost.
Yes, I understand.
And it's in the tens of millions of dollars to reinsure.
Right.
And so what we'd like to explore with the provinces is there other ways to remove this from their financial statements.
Right.
Quebec has an example where they've been able to do a set aside. Manitoba was exploring that. There's other options in terms of maybe we could pool all the resources at a national level. So we're attuned to that, but we'd like to find ways to support the provinces to reduce the financial risk to their statements while reducing costs to producers.
Right. And so
all right, gang, we're going to cross over to a different video now. It's only a short one. It's like 3 minutes long. Then we'll jump over to the House of Commons. But I want to show this piece just because it blows my mind.
You mentioned Canada. Most Americans don't even know the capital of Canada. Canada does not appear on their radar, doesn't figure in their thoughts. But you described it as probably, quote, probably the richest country in the world. I think that's objectively true. And yet Canada is not a rich country. In fact, it's getting poorer. Its life expectancy is declining. Its GDP is declining. And that's on purpose. The nation of Canada has been suppressed on purpose. Its population is being killed off by the state through its assisted suicide program, and its population is changing through mass immigration against the will of the population. So that country is being held down on purpose. And my question is, by whom and why?
Sure, that's a great question. And this is something that I struggle with all the time because I am a Canadian citizen. I went to school there. My answer is that Canada was never really a nation state. It's more of a glorified resource colony for the British, the city of London. And the reality is now that the British are under a lot of strain, the city of London is under a lot of financial pressure. It sees places like Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And what do you do if you have financial issues? Well, you do corporate restructuring, right? You change the middle management, right? And historically, the British got along very well with the Indian elite, right? They went into India and stole trillions of dollars from the Indians, and the Indian elite were perfectly happy to help them, right? So why not use the same model for Australia, for Canada? So, there are millions of Indians who immigrated to Canada in the past 5 years, and it's put a lot of strain on the Canadian economy because housing prices are have exploded, and so ordinary Canadians can no longer afford to buy a house. And it's put tremendous pressure on the Canadian welfare system, on the Canadian economy. And you would think that the proper strategy would have a moratorium where they're like, you know what, we've had too many immigrants and we need to close the borders and absorb these immigrants because we want to ensure that these immigrants have proper housing, they have decent jobs, right? You would think that that'd be the right strategy.
Yes.
And instead, Mark Carney goes to India and says, we want more Indians. And also, we'll give you scholarships to come to Canada to study for free. Meanwhile, there are a lot of Canadians who are homeless, who are unemployed, and who cannot put food on the table. But hey, we want more Indians. So if it's not corporate restructuring, if it's not trying to asset strip Canada, I really don't understand the strategy for this.
Well, I mean, it's a kind of genocide, right, against Canadians, people whose ancestors built the country. But you wonder what the purpose is. Like, this is because it is happening all over the West, all over the English-speaking world, in the white countries. And it's not an accident. It's not organic. So it's a big picture, that spans from Australia to Ottawa.
All right, gang. So we're going to flip over to question period now. So there'll be a few minutes of statements here before we get going into full mode. But here we go. They're singing "Oh Canada." That's fun.
Our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons commend, quand embrasse et porte les pays, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Let the doors be opened, que l'on ouvre les portes. Statements by members. Déclaration de député, the honourable member for Yukon.
Mr. Speaker, you must check out Season 2 of Northern Tales on YouTube, a televised puppet show Yukon created and Yukon produced, which premiered last week in Whitehorse. This season, the squirrels are definitely in charge of production. Ground Squirrel Scout Perry and roving reporter Michael J. the Fox are helping kids find science on the screen, and in fact, everywhere they go when outside. Discovery is in the magic of the bog, the tiny wind-blown lives of mosquitoes, or in the peregrinations of the mighty caribou. This boreal puppet mockumentary produced by Shot in the Dark Productions is silly enough for kids, but approved for adults. Thank you to creators Kelly Milner and her late father Bob Hayes for proving that high-quality northern-made stories can reach audiences far beyond the Yukon. As we learn with the puppets how local species are adapting to new climate realities, let's carry that spirit of curiosity and stewardship with us. Thank you for supporting the stories that teach us all how to be better citizens of the wild.
L'honorable député de Vaudreuil.
The honourable member for Vaudreuil.
The city of Vaudreuil recognized the need for a songbird rehabilitation center in Quebec, so they founded Le Nichoir in Hudson. 3 decades later, what started out as a repurposed barn and a handful of volunteers has grown into a permanent state-of-the-art rehabilitation facility, hundreds of dedicated volunteers, and the rescue, rehabilitation, and release of thousands of wild birds back into their natural habitats. So to the incredible staff and volunteers who give their time so generously, the students who come to learn and grow through this work, the supporters who stand behind them year after year, to Director Sue Wiley, Chairman Peter McBride, President Wendy Dollinger, and the dedicated members of the board, thank you for your leadership. Cet anniversaire témoigne du dévouement.
This anniversary shows the hard work of all of the Nichoir team. On behalf of residents of Vaudreuil and all bird-loving Canadians, I'd like to thank them for their 30 years of service, compassion, and what they've done for our community and environment. And I hope that the organization will succeed for many more years. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow, Colette Burgonia will be inducted into the Canada Games Hall of Honor as a builder. From 1992 to 2014, Burgonia attended every Winter Paralympic Games and 3 Summer Paralympic Games, winning 6 medals. She's a member of the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame and even has a Saskatoon public school named after her in my riding in Rosewood. Burgonia has coached many successful Paralympic athletes in Saskatchewan, like Brittany Hudak, who just won a bronze at this year's Winter Olympics. She's also coached Crystal Suchuk, who was also recruited by Burgonia to compete in 2019 and 2023 Canada Winter Games. So for Colette Burgonia, she will be recognized tomorrow in Quebec City for the 2026 class of the Canada Games Hall of Honor.
The Honourable Member for St. John, St. Croix.
Mr. Speaker, criminals are not afraid of this government, but law-abiding Canadians are. Lawful farm owners are not the cause of crime. Confiscating legally purchased and heavily regulated property will not stop criminals. It will not stop smuggling, and it will not stop gang violence. The Public Safety Minister confirmed this week the Liberals will confiscate legally owned property without fair and due compensation. The Minister also said the Liberal gun grab will not be optional for police forces. So how many tax dollars will be wasted searching the homes of over 2.3 million law-abiding Canadians, disarming Canadians and diverting police to the gun grab during a crime wave will not make anyone in Canada safer. Criminals are let off, taxpayers pay the price, and law-abiding Canadians are punished. This is what happens when blind ideology replaces good old Canadian common sense.
L'honorable député de Beauport.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, this year, Autism Quebec will be celebrating its 50th anniversary. It was founded in 1976 by parents who wanted better services, specialized services for children with autism. And over the years, this organization has become a pillar of the community. Autism Quebec is part of the Quebec Autism Federation. It brings together all stakeholders for the same mission, to better support, inform, and the organization offers now a broad range of services, awareness activities, and promotes the rights of people with autism and their families. For 50 years, they have been trying to build a more inclusive, more respectful, and more humane society. Thank you very much.
Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, I am honored to stand today in celebration of Greek Independence Day, a powerful symbol of bravery, courage, unity, and the enduring human desire for freedom. On March 25, 1821, the people of Greece rose against centuries of Ottoman occupation, inspired by the Hellenic spirit, a deep love for their homeland, and a belief in self-determination. Their struggle was not easy, but through resilience and sacrifice, they secured their independence and inspired movements of liberty around the world. Greek Independence Day is a celebration of history and a reminder of the values that define a nation: freedom, democracy, the rule of law, and cultural pride. These ideals, born in ancient Greece, form the foundation that continues to shape societies today. May their legacy continue to inspire generations to come. To all my friends in Canada, Greece, and across the world, I wish happy Independence Day. Zito η ελευθερία, zito ο πανταχού ελληνισμός, zito η Ελλάδα, long live Canada!
The honourable member for Pierre Dollard.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of a wife and a mother, Camila. Her husband, Hussein Jalil, a Canadian citizen of Uyghur origin, was detained 20 years ago. He was on a family trip overseas and was forcibly transferred to China. He has been imprisoned ever since, without a fair trial or access to consular officials. It's been 2 decades since Hussein's wife and children have heard the sound of his voice. His youngest son, who is currently 19, has never even met his father. Imagine that. Today, we ask for clemency for Mr. Jalil on humanitarian and compassionate grounds. His family deserves a phone call. Hussein's children deserve to have their father back. 20 years of incarceration is enough. Let humanity speak. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank organizations that have a positive impact on our community. First of all, the Saint-Romuald Lions Club, which is celebrating its 60th birthday, as well as the Lévis Lions Club, which is now 80 years old. For decades, their members have been working hard to support vulnerable people and improve the quality of life in our communities. I'd also like to thank the Lévis Rotary Club, which is now turning 35. With its many initiatives here and abroad, members of the Rotary Club have embodied values of solidarity, leadership, and service. All of these volunteers are pillars of our communities. Their work is often very discreet, but it has concrete and long-lasting impacts. On behalf of everyone in Bellechasse-Lévis, I'd like to thank them. Congratulations. Long live these 3 clubs.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-l'Île. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Together, we are celebrating Francophonie Month. But when I say we are celebrating, that we does not include the Prime Minister, the only Prime Minister in a very long time that has no Francophone speechwriter. It also excludes Michael Rousseau, the CEO of Air Canada, who is still not able to say more than 2 words in French. But this we includes nearly 400 million French speakers on 5 continents. In Quebec, the French language shapes our culture and is the very basis of our society. The Quebec people is a resilient one. For more than 260 years, it's been fighting to preserve the French language, but it will only succeed when Quebec becomes a country. We would also like to underscore the courage of Francophone and Acadian communities. For them, using French in public life is an effort every single day. Long live the French language.
The Honourable Member for Surrey-Newton.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the important work of the Tradesmen Association of British Columbia.
Are you kidding me?
A non-profit organization dedicated to supporting skilled trades and strengthening our construction industry through education, safety training, and professional development. The association helps tradespeople build successful careers while promoting high standards of workmanship and safety. On March 28th and 29th, the association will host its 10th annual construction expo in Surrey, welcoming thousands of visitors with pre-publication and admission. Led by President and founder Mr. Raman Sharma, this expo connects industry professionals with families and homeowners, showcases innovation and green building, and supports local businesses. I commend Mr. Sharma and Tradesmen Association of BC for its leadership.
The Honourable Member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's auto industry is in crisis. Since this Liberal government took office, production is down 50%, exports are down 50%, and thousands of jobs are gone. The Liberal Prime Minister thinks we should surrender, but Conservatives say we should act. We put forward a new auto pact with real solutions to make it easier to build and buy Canadian, restore free trade, and protect blue-collar paychecks. And it's about more than the jobs of today. It's also about the jobs of tomorrow and the next generation of workers who dream of a future in the skilled trades. It's about the good-paying jobs that have formed the foundations of our communities for generations. But instead of supporting our plan to protect Canada's auto industry, the Liberal government voted against it. They have no plan to secure tariff-free access to the U.S. market and only show up with empty words instead of working with Conservatives to support common-sense policies. Mr. Speaker, Canadian auto workers were watching that vote yesterday, and they see that only Canada's Conservatives are serious about protecting Canadian jobs and Canadian sovereignty.
L'honorable député de Saint-Boniface.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Boniface, Saint-Vital. Mr. Speaker, on March 20th, we celebrated International Francophonie Day. And
Is it just me, or can you spot a Liberal just by the way they dress? They all have these stupid styles. Oh, it's annoying.
I rise today to speak to the vitality and resilience of Francophone communities throughout the country, especially in Manitoba. In all parts of our province, French is thriving. We see it in our festivals, our schools, organizations, our businesses. And I am particularly proud of my riding, Saint-Boniface, Saint-Vital. We can see in my riding that French is thriving every single day in our culture, our creativity. French continues to evolve with us within open, diverse, and future-focused communities. In my riding, you can live in French, work in French, laugh in French, and yes, sometimes even try to remember a word in French. But what really matters is that French is very much alive. So although I'm a bit late, I'd like to celebrate our Francophone culture with pride, energy, and with enjoyment. Thank you.
The honourable member for Brandon Souris.
Mr. Speaker, we're 3 months into the new year and Canadians are seeing more of the same from this Liberal government. The Prime Minister has made promise after promise to improve Canada's finances, but as the months go by, the government has failed to deliver a single positive economic outcome. The Liberals promised the best G7 economy, but instead Canada sits at last place. In fact, Canada's is the only shrinking economy in the G7, along with the highest household debt and the highest food inflation. Liberals promised more jobs, but in the first 2 months of 2026 alone, Canada's lost more than 100,000 jobs. Liberals want to chalk these problems up to global factors, but if they want someone to blame, they should look in the mirror. Our fellow G7 members deal with the same global factors we do, and yet these problems are worse here in Canada than they are anywhere else in the world. Canadians are done with these Liberals passing the buck. It's time for them to step up and deliver the results they promised, or get out of the way so Conservatives can deliver it for them.
The Honourable Member for Honoré-Mercier. Mr. Speaker, I am delighted to welcome here on the Hill a number of incredible groups from my riding Honoré-Mercier. Sarah d'Anjou, 123 Go RDP, Carrefour Jeunesse Emploi RDP, Anjou Saint-Justin, Aîné J'écoute en Action, the Pointe-de-Lille AQDR, the Maison des Jeunes RDP, the CFHI, the Regroupement Jeunesse en Action, the CDC de RDP, le Phare, SAC Anjou, the RDP Soccer Club, the ASEC and the AIEM, as well as members of a number of seniors clubs, Il Faro, Parc Cipriani, Fiamme d'Oro, the Abruzzo Folklore Group, the Seigneurie d'Anjou residents, and the AIAPA. And I would also like to mention that one of the municipal councillors for Rivière-des-Prairies, Gerlando Guaraggi, is here. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Battleford, Lloydminster, Middle Lake.
Mr. Speaker, we cannot control what happens abroad, but the Liberals do control the policies here at home that are making life more expensive for all Canadians. Canada now has the highest food price inflation in the G7 and the only shrinking economy. While fuel prices are soaring, Canadians are paying even more at the pump because of Liberal policies. Gas in Canada averages $1.70 per litre. Compare that to $1.45 in the United States. That is nearly 26 cents more per liter. The Prime Minister's industrial carbon tax and fuel standard are already driving up costs, and yet he still plans to raise the fuel standard to 17 cents a liter. These costs affect all Canadians. Higher costs to produce and ship food pushes grocery prices even higher. The Prime Minister can't hide behind global factors. These are Liberal costs imposed at home, and it is Canadians who are paying for it.
The honourable member for Saint Laurent.
Mr. Speaker, on March 25th, 1821, the Greek independence war started with the revolutionary insurrection with heroes like Theodoros Kolokotronis, Laskarina Mompolina, and Rigas Veraios, who wrote that it is better to live 1 hour free than 40 years as a slave or prisoner.
Greeks around the world celebrate Greek Independence Day to honor the women and men who fought with courage, pride, and determination for the freedom of their people, for future generations of Greeks, and for the liberated Greece. As modern-day Greeks and people of Greek origin, we owe our freedom to these heroes, and we remember them year after year by holding various events in their honor. This year is particularly special for Montreal's Greek community, as it marks the Hellenic community of Greater Montreal's 120-year anniversary. I look forward to seeing everyone at the various celebratory events, including this Sunday's Greek Independence Day Parade. Χρόνια πολλά σε όλους τους Έλληνες. Ζήτω η Ελλάδα, ζήτω ο Καναδάς, ζήτω 25 Μαρτίου του 1821.
Oral questions, questions orales. The honourable leader of the opposition.
Let's go.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Auditor General denounced the current Justice Minister, as well as the current Liberal Heritage Minister and the current Liberal Immigration Minister. These three ministers caused a catastrophe on the international student file. They allowed 150,000 suspected cases of fraud and didn't even investigate them. The Prime Minister promoted these people who wreaked havoc in the system. Will he continue this Liberal incompetence?
Prime Minister.
Look at who showed up.
Mr. Speaker, I am blessed to have a strong cabinet that works hard for Canada strong. The new Canadian government has taken back control of the immigration system.
Bring yourself to work day.
Claims are down by a third. International student numbers have gone down 70%. We have Canada strong and a balanced immigration system.
Meet the new Liberals the same as the old Liberals, Mr. Speaker. The numbers he just gave are compared to the even more miserable numbers of his Justice Minister. In fact, compared to the Harper government, the last sane policy in immigration, we have asylum claims are now up to 2,880%. Temporary foreign workers up 178%. International students up 39%. And yesterday, the Auditor General condemned the current Liberal Justice Minister, Liberal Heritage Minister, and Liberal Immigration Minister for allowing 150,000 cases of fraud to go uninvestigated. Will he fire them, or will he just continue with the same Liberal incompetence?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm blessed with a strong cabinet that's working hard for a strong country.
Hear, hear.
And we are taking control of the immigration system. Asylum seekers down by a third, foreign students down by 60%, temporary foreign workers down by 50%, the population equilibrated, equal. We are investigating 100% of every fraud cases since this new government came to office. Hear, hear. We have the system under control.
He's a straight-up bold-faced liar.
Same old Liberals, same old failures. Look at the economy. He likes to blame world affairs for his failing economy, but the G7 countries have the same world economy. Yet, the Prime Minister has delivered the second highest unemployment in the G7, the worst household debt in the G7, the worst housing costs in the G7, the worst In fact, the only shrinking economy in the G7. And, Mr. Speaker, we have 100,000 lost jobs in the last 2 months alone. Why is it that after this Prime Minister promised that he'd be the first, he's the worst in the G7?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let's take a look at what's happened since this summer. The United States has lost 6,000. Écoute.
Come on. These are important issues. These are important issues we're discussing. And Canadians are watching. The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's look at what's happened to the United States since the summer. They have lost 6,000 jobs. This country's created over 80,000 jobs since August. Let's look at what's happened to wages in this country. They are growing the highest in years, 4%. They're growing twice the rate of inflation. Canadians are getting ahead. Every single month of this government, Canadian wages have grown faster than the rate of inflation. Rents are at a 33-month low. Affordability is the best it's been in over a decade.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I guess for those people who stash their cash in tax havens, you've never had it so good and so affordable. Tell that to the single mother who's walking down the grocery aisle. Or let's talk about jobs. He compares it to the United States. When you do an apples-to-apples comparison of unemployment, it is 1.3% higher in Canada than it is in the U.S. In fact, Canada has the second highest unemployment in the G7, the worst grocery price inflation in the G7, the most unaffordable housing in the G7, the worst household debt in the G7. Mr. Speaker, he promised we'd be first, so why is he the worst?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have the lowest debt burden in the G7. We have the lowest deficit in the G7. We have the highest credit rating in the G7. What is this government doing? It's putting it into action with a defense industrial strategy that'll bring $500 billion of investment, with an auto strategy, with an electricity strategy, with the climate competitiveness strategy, with a housing strategy. We are moving forward. We're investing in this country, the second best country in the world for foreign direct investment. We are moving forward. Come join us.
How bad is Joanne Thomas's breath that she's wearing one of those face pampers? Give me a break.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Strategies and imaginary promises will not pay the bills or fill the tank. We all know that global oil prices have gone up, but that does not explain while in Canadian dollars and in liters, Americans pay $1.46 a liter at the pump, while Canadians are paying $1.70, 26 cents higher per liter at the pump because of this Prime Minister's anti-energy policies and his newly renamed carbon tax, the clean fuel standard. Will he get rid of these policies and get rid of that tax so Canadians can have some relief at the pumps?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I know the member opposite was not here in the spring. It's a source of great sadness. We got rid of the consumer carbon tax. That took off 18 cents per liter. That took off 18 cents per liter. And Mr. Speaker, what matters is the rate of growth of wages relative to overall inflation. Wages growing twice the rate. This country is moving forward.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's all an illusion, Mr. Speaker. This Prime Minister not only supported the carbon tax that he advised that Justin Trudeau put in, he thought it should be higher and broader. And when he got into power, he didn't get rid of it. He renamed it. He called it the clean fuel standard. 7 cents a liter this year, rising to 17 cents. On top of it, industrial carbon tax that's driving up the costs of all the industrial production of our energy. And that is one of the reasons why under this Liberal Prime Minister, Canadians pay the equivalent of 26 cents a litre more than the Americans. Will he stop ripping off Canadians at the pump, get rid of these Liberal taxes so Canadians can get moving?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are getting this country moving with the biggest transformation of this economy in generations. We are building unprecedented amounts of affordable housing. We are building clean energy. We are lowering energy costs for Canadians. We are building a defense industrial strategy this country has not seen since the Second World War. We are protecting Canadians. We are building this economy. We are empowering Canadians.
The honourable member for Beloeil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, first, I want to be very clear. The Bloc fully respects freedom of religion. This is true for all the people, and it's true for the Premier of Quebec as well. Now, yesterday, the Prime Minister quoted the Bible, which is his prerogative, but I have a question about current events. Does the Prime Minister endorse the church-state separation and Quebec secularism?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, true, yesterday, alongside the opposition leader and members of the NDP and the leader of the Green Party and the Speaker of the House himself. I was there. I did quote from the Bible. And I also quoted from Marcus Aurelius, like the opposition leader, because...
Oh my God, this guy, can he talk without his hand in his pocket?
As he came up with some universal principles, virtues, values, examples of virtues, examples of determination, and of course... The honourable member for Beloeil-Chambly. The first word was yes, so I guess that's clear. I assume that, like us, the Prime Minister believes that politics and religion should be different. There's the public sphere and the private sphere, and the religion should not interfere in state decisions. Could the Prime Minister then explain why his government asked Crown attorneys to oppose a bill duly passed by the Quebec Parliament which would ensure church-state separation? Why is he spending millions of taxpayer dollars, including Quebec taxpayer dollars, on this fight? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, that's a fundamental question. The member's question has to do with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It is the responsibility of the federal government to defend that charter. There is a process going on right now at the Supreme Court. We will await the result. The honourable member for Beloeil-Chambly. At a certain point, the Prime Minister will need to make a decision. Either he will have to acknowledge that religion can influence the affairs of the state, or he will have to stop going after Bill 21, which enshrines secularism in Quebec state institutions. The Prime Minister cannot say two contradictory things. At a certain moment, he will need to decide and give some answers. Is he in agreement with the principle of church-state separation, yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, that is a false choice. The Bloc has made a decision with Bill C-9. It is Parliament's responsibility to protect the rights of religious people. For example, the Jewish community here in Canada, they must be protected from hatred. So why, Mr. Speaker, I'm confused about why, when the member across the way is asking questions like that while also supporting Bill C-9.
While the Liberals don't control what happens abroad, they do control their policies here at home. And instead of working to bring costs down, the Liberal Prime Minister is not only going ahead with his industrial carbon tax, he's introduced a fuel standards tax which adds 7 cents a litre to the already high cost of gas, and that'll eventually rise to 17 cents per litre. It's more of the same Liberal taxes from the same Liberal government. So when will this Liberal government give Canadians a break and get rid of these Liberal gas taxes that are making life more expensive for Canadian families?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to be able to stand up here once again.
This nerve herder should go hug a tree. She's going to stand there, and I don't know, I think she believes her own lies, but she's just going to gaslight Canadians about climate change, which isn't a real thing. It's just this way that they get into your pockets and manipulate everything. Julie DeBrusen is trash.
To reiterate and remind the members opposite that the industrial carbon price does not increase the cost of food. Studies show that. But if they want to talk about what we can do to help Canadians, I hope that they will celebrate alongside with me that our government cut taxes for Canadians. That is a win. They can talk about imaginary taxes. Over here, we're taking real action on affordability.
Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Canadians are paying more because of Liberal policies here at home. All G7 countries are dealing with similar external factors, but it is only this Liberal government that has caused us to have the worst food inflation and the only shrinking economy in the G7. The price of gas is 20% higher here than it is in the US, and Liberal fuel and carbon taxes are making it even worse. When will this Liberal government stop passing the buck, take responsibility for their policies, and finally cut Liberal taxes to make life more affordable for Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know where that member's been, but on this side of the House, we're going to continue to focus on affordability for Canadians. We cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. We cut the GST for first-time homebuyers. We cut the consumer carbon tax. Mr. Speaker, on this side, we're going to continue to focus on and build the strongest economy in the G7. Time for that party, that leader, and that member to stop the obstruction and stop the rhetoric. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for New Tecumseh Gwillimbury.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians can't afford the cost of living, and the Liberals, they think the best way to get them back on their feet is to miss 3 car payments. That's the problem. Their decisions keep making life more expensive. As gas prices skyrocket, this government is making things worse with their industrial carbon tax and the fuel standard tax. They point to global instability, but it is this Prime Minister who is choosing to make Canadians pay even more at the pump. Why won't the Liberals remove the gas tax on gas and give Canadians a break?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Speaker, we acknowledge that oil price shocks due to the war in the Middle East are rippling across the world and increasing the cost of living pressures on Canadians here at home. That's why we recently worked with our international partners to release hundreds of millions of barrels of Canadian oil as part of an effort to provide stability for businesses and consumers. We can't unblock the Strait of Hormuz, but we can control what we do here at home. We've cut taxes for 22 million Canadians, offered a groceries and essentials benefit, offered a national school food program. That saves families hundreds and thousands of dollars per month.
The Honourable Member for New Tecumseh Gwillimbury.
Gas prices are 26 cents higher in Canada than the U.S., and Liberal policies are forcing Canadians to skip meals, defer dreams, and fall behind on bills. That's because we are the only one with a shrinking economy in the G7, as well as the worst food inflation. While Canadians are being forced into hard choices, this Liberal government has a simple choice. They can scrap the taxes that are driving up fuel costs so Canadians pay less at the pump. Will they finally take responsibility for what they can control and axe these taxes?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, maybe that member remembers voting against all of the measures that actually do make life more affordable. For example, early learning and childcare here in Ontario, saving a family with 1 child $16,000 a year, Mr. Speaker. For example, the announcement we just made yesterday to ensure that students can access up to 40% more in student grants. That's going to make sure that student accessibility to education remains affordable. Mr. Speaker, the list goes on and on. But no matter what it is, they vote against it. Why don't they support Canadians?
The honourable member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, every G7 country faces global headwinds, yet only one is choosing to make inflation worse through domestic policy. Canada now leads the G7 in food price inflation, carries the only shrinking G7 economy, and faces fuel costs nearly 20% higher than the United States because this Liberal government is adding an industrial carbon tax and a fuel standard tax that will reach 17 cents per litre. If the Prime Minister cannot name a single G7 country that is following this declining trend, what justification does this one have for doubling down this failed path?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, will they continue to talk down this economy, talk down our workers? We are building it up. Why? Because we have a plan. We have a plan to make life more affordable. We cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. We've taken the GST off first-time homebuyers, and we are investing in our auto sector, our steel sector, our aluminum sector. Why? There's a trade war on, and we are backing real families, real companies, and real jobs. Why don't they get on board and support real workers?
The honourable member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, we're not talking down the economy. The Liberals are bringing down the economy. But a recent survey showed that 84% of farmers think this Prime Minister is an epic failure. I'm wondering if the Prime Minister could tell me which one of his policies have made farmers so angry. Is it the fact that they're closing 7 research centres and firing hundreds of scientists? Is it because we're the only G7 country with a 35% tariff on fertilizer imports? Is it the fuel standard, the industrial carbon tax, which goes up again on April 1st? Which one of these policies is the reason the Prime Minister is an epic failure?
Exactly right. Go Barlow.
Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, if you would like to talk about farmers and canola farmers specifically, let's talk about how the clean fuel regulations actually help canola farmers. It adds to the value of a bushel of canola. But you know what? The Leader of the Opposition may want to speak to some of his constituents. He represents the second largest canola producing riding in all of Alberta. And right next to him is a Strathcona renewable diesel facility that's going to purchase about half of Alberta's canola production. That is good for farmers.
Honourable member for Foothills.
I would like the minister to know that their fuel regulations are so complicated, has made it so expensive that 3/4 of the feedstock comes from the United States or used cooking oil from China, not canola farmers in Alberta. It is the clean fuel standard, the industrial carbon tax, an escalator tax, and tariffs on fertilizer, which are making food unaffordable and farming unsustainable. Will the Liberals realize it is their own policies that are causing these problems? Will they cancel their fuel tax, their industrial carbon tax, their escalator tax, and help make Canadians' life more affordable?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we eliminated the divisive consumer carbon price, and they're still complaining, Mr. Speaker. We know the industrial carbon tax has a negligible effect on food. If that member goes out and buys an F-150 Ford tomorrow from the highest emission contributor of steel and aluminum in this country, I can tell you he can go back to the Leader of the Opposition and get his triple because it's cheaper than what it's costing us, the GHG emissions. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Rivière. Yes, the Honourable Member for Rivière du Nord has the floor. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals keep saying that they will not comment on the ongoing Supreme Court case on Bill 21 and the Notwithstanding Clause. No interpretation?
Speak English, then.
We'll give the opportunity to the member for Rivière du Nord to ask his question. The Honourable Member for Rivière du Nord.
Like anyone
Mr.
cares.
Speaker, the Liberals keep saying that they will not comment on the ongoing Supreme Court case on Bill 21 of the Notwithstanding Clause. However, the weekend before the Terrebonne by-elections, they will hold their convention in Montreal, and the very first resolution to be debated would be a federal veto on all provincial legislation, invoking the notwithstanding clause before exhausting all other options. It's the very first resolution at the top of their agenda. The Liberals may not want to talk about the work of the Supreme Court, but at a certain moment they will have to vote on their own resolution. So how will they be voting? I don't know if it has to do with the federal government. We're talking about a specific political party. We're talking about political party delegates at a Montreal convention. I will allow the member, however, to ask his second question. This will be taken into advisement, but would the honourable member for Rivière du Nord like to ask a second question? Mr. Speaker, it's written right there in black and white, to quote, that the Liberal Party of Canada urged the Government of Canada to invoke disallowance on any provincial legislation that proactively invokes the notwithstanding clause before court challenges are exhausted. That's what they want to see, but they're trying to get the Supreme Court to do their dirty work for them. Mr. Speaker, if these Liberals truly want to change the Constitution, they should reopen it. Will they have the courage to do that instead of hiding behind the court system? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, we've been clear. The federal government has the responsibility and duty to defend the Constitution. You can defend the French language and the right of Francophones to live their lives in French while also defending the Constitution. This is not the right place to have this debate. The case is before the Supreme Court, and that is the best forum for these sorts of debates. The Honourable Member for Louis St. Laurent, Akiawanrock. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was elected based on the promise that we would have the strongest economy in the G7. And 1 year on, that's not what we're seeing. In just the first 2 months of the year, 100,000 Canadians lost their jobs. 100,000. We are the only shrinking economy in the G7. We have the highest unemployment rate in the G7. And most importantly, we have the worst food inflation in the G7. Will the Prime Minister and his government finally acknowledge that their policies aren't working? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are a number of factors that are driving up food costs these days. For example, the cost of fertilizer. But we can control affordability measures that we put in place here, like a tax cut for 22 million Canadians, the Canadian Groceries Benefit, which assists over 12 million Canadians. But we won't just stop there. These are measures within our control. We'll have a defence industrial strategy which will create jobs in Quebec, including at the Davie Shipyard and the Valcartier military base. I hope that the member for Louis St. Laurent, Akiawanrock will support our policies. The Honourable Member for Louis St. Laurent, Akiawanrock. I guess we have bad news for Canadians. The Liberal policies are not working. 100,000 Canadians, men, women, households have been affected by job losses. That's the reality after 1 year of this Prime Minister and the Liberal government. Sure, there are problems all around the world, but if that's the case, why is it Canada that is feeling the impact of food inflation? This is unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, what is unacceptable is that every time members across the way have an opportunity to support people, for example, through the Canadian Child Benefit, the Canada Dental Plan, tax cuts, the grocery benefit, on every single one of these occasions, they voted against. Meanwhile, on this side of the House, we are building the strongest economy in the G7. We have a defence industrial strategy. We are carrying out major projects like the Nouveau Monde graphite mine. That is what we're doing on this side of the House. The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Kataskamik-Témiscouata. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said that Canada would have the strongest economy in the G7, and instead we find ourselves with the weakest economy in the G7. Over 100,000 jobs lost in 2 months, the second highest unemployment rate, the highest household debt, and the worst food inflation in the entire G7. Instead of solving the problem, the Prime Minister is still holding back projects, taxing production, and expanding deficits to the detriment of Canadians. How can this Liberal government claim that all is fine when their choices are hurting families and the economy? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hear the question from my colleague. We work together well. I have a lot of respect for him, but I don't understand why he refuses to acknowledge that this government has focused on Buy Canadian, leading to more jobs in his riding, in La Pocatière, at Alstom. Why isn't he asking questions about that? I'm sure people at La Pocatière are very happy. Things are going well in the service sector in his region. The same can be said for the member for Louis Saint Laurent, who just asked a question. We are investing in the Quebec City region. We will get things done at the Davie Shipyard. The Honourable Member for Richmond North Athabasca.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' Curem financial fiasco continues. After $5 billion in cost overruns, officials have admitted that they do not know how much it will cost in the future. It could easily exceed $660 million to $1 billion in annual operating expenses. Mr. Speaker, Curem is already the most expensive Liberal scandal in history. My question is simple. Is the Prime Minister going to show leadership, and will he finally take charge of this issue himself? Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to modernizing benefits, Mr. Speaker, remember that the system that we are replacing is a 50-year-old system. Our old age security benefits for seniors depended on it, and it was imperative for us to make this change. What I'm noticing is for 7.7 million seniors, they are receiving their payments in time, and we are addressing the backlog month after month. Service Canada officials are working at this. The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, Journal de Québec tells us that the Liberal government has spent over $211 million in cost overruns for Accenture, an external firm, IT consultant firm. And this feeds into Curem, cost overruns. And then there are the issues of outsourcing to India. Accenture is related to Brookfield, of course. Does it make sense to the Liberals that the taxpayer money just serves to make these businesses wealthier while citizens have to pay out of their pockets? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud to see that the modernization of benefits that was essential to do, and if you look at the Auditor General's report from 2014, we could see that we were heading towards a wall with the former system. And so it's positive that we are focusing on moving towards a modern system so that seniors can get accurate amounts, benefits. 7.7 million Canadians are receiving these benefits. The Honourable Member for Acadie-Annapolis. Thank you very much, Speaker. I'm pleased to represent Acadie-Annapolis, a mostly rural riding in Nova Scotia that I've been living in for a long time, forever.
Medium-sized businesses, whether it's engaging with business owners or by supporting them in my daily life. However, we know that rural business owners often struggle with less access to financing, smaller markets, a tighter pool of workers, and longer supply chain. So to the Minister of ACOA, how is the Government of Canada supporting small and medium-sized businesses in Acadie-Annapolis and in Atlantic Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for his advocacy for economic growth in Atlantic Canada. I'd like to point out that he once served as the critic for Atlantic Canadian economic development before he joined the governing benches. Despite almost 5 months passing, the Conservatives are yet to appoint a successor, despite having good Atlantic Canadians they could put to the position. But, Mr. Speaker, to my colleague's question, we are advancing new programs to help small and medium-sized businesses deal with American tariffs, to help small firms become big firms by tapping into the defense industrial strategy, and we have not forgotten what built our economy, including the fishery, which that member has been a champion for, to restore the Atlantic Fisheries Fund and to remove Asian tariffs on Nova Scotian seafood. We need more champions like this in government.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, I hope it was worth it. Under this Liberal Prime Minister, Canada is losing jobs at speeds not seen in a generation. Over 100,000 full-time jobs lost in a month alone, and close to 50,000 youth jobs lost. In the G7, we have the only shrinking economy, the second highest unemployment, the highest household debt, and the highest food inflation. The Liberal rhetoric simply does not match the reality. Why can't they recognize the problems that their policies are causing and adopt the Conservative jobs plan?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know what the Conservative job plan is because they vote against every single thing, including the things that unions have saying they need. We're investing in skills training for young people, Mr. Speaker, and we are moving forward with a defense industrial strategy that's creating 125,000 jobs. The major projects are estimated to support over 60,000 jobs, and we are ensuring that workers have the training they need. These are all things that the Conservatives fight against. So what exactly is their job strategy? Do nothing?
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Can't make this shit up.
We released a detailed jobs plan in the fall. This Liberal government's approach is clearly failing. Over 100,000 jobs lost. They talk about major projects. They haven't approved a single major project. Now, Canadians at home are experiencing the catastrophic impacts of Liberal policies. They promised a trade when they haven't delivered it. The industrial carbon tax remains in place. Objectively, we are shedding jobs at rates not seen in a generation. Will they stop patting themselves on the back and actually recognize the challenges Canadians are facing?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, here are a few facts for the member. Joint support ships, 3,500 jobs. Arctic and offshore patrol ships, 2,300 jobs. Remotely piloted aircraft system jobs, 700 annually. River-class destroyers, 5,250 jobs. Logistics vehicle modernization, 1,000 jobs. Armored combat support vehicles, 1,650 jobs. Mr. Speaker, this list goes on and on and on.
The honourable member for Mission, Matsqui, Abbotsford.
Speaker, the Prime Minister promised Canadians the strongest economy in the G7. Instead, Canada now has the only shrinking economy and the second highest unemployment. We've lost over 100,000 jobs since January this year, and many of our small businesses are going to the United States. Other countries are dealing with the same problems and same global pressures. Will the Prime Minister admit his policies are failing Canadians and outline why our economy is the worst in the G7?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, since September, Canada's economy created 80,000 jobs. Because we know in times of global uncertainty, we need to invest, Mr. Speaker. That is why we've made the largest
What kind of autism is that?
infrastructure investment in Canadian history, Mr. Speaker. We're building big, we're building bold, and we're building now, Mr. Speaker, with Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, Canadian unionized workers, Mr. Speaker. We're laser focused on creating jobs, good jobs in the skilled trades, good jobs for the future generations. Mr. Speaker, when will the Conservatives get on board?
The honourable member for Mission, Matsqui, Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think the gravity of the situation is hitting the government appropriately. In the last 2 decades, Canada has lost 100,000 entrepreneurs, but our population has gone up by 10 million people. Since 2019, there's been a 19% increase in business exits with only a 5% increase in new businesses. Nothing this government is doing is helping our entrepreneurs, our job creators. When will this government reverse its horrible economic policies and get out of the way so businesses can thrive?
The Honourable Minister for Women, Gender Equality, Small Business and Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, our government is focused on delivering results, which includes increasing business confidence. And in fact, the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses reports very recently that small business optimism is at the highest level in 2 years. And that is because on this side of the House, we are ensuring that we are cutting red tape for small and medium-sized enterprises. We're investing in them, Mr. Speaker, and ensuring that as we expand to new markets and in new countries, we're going to make sure that they have all the opportunity to be able to export and grow their businesses, Mr. Speaker. We will always be there for them.
Nice.
Member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
The Prime Minister promised the strongest economy in the G7. Instead, Canada is at the bottom. We have the only shrinking economy, the second highest unemployment, the highest household debt, and the worst food inflation in the G7. The Prime Minister can't hide behind global challenges when every other G7 country faces the exact same pressures. These problems didn't appear overnight. They are a direct result of bad Liberal policies. Will the Prime Minister reverse course on the policies that have left Canada with a shrinking economy, soaring food prices, and rising unemployment?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition's picking up the same lines like a soon-to-be-gifted kettleball, but these repetitions will not get them the gains that they seek because they require Canadians to forget everything before yesterday. We are in a trade war, Mr. Speaker, and in that trade war we are performing very well. We are getting more jobs than the United States. We have foreign direct investment at the highest level in 18 years. Alberta's unemployment decreased by 0.4 points in this year, and there is much to celebrate because we have a strong focus on building this economy.
Corey Hogan is a weak person. He's a liar. He's a narcissist, he is hateful. What a dirty dig there at the beginning. They're embarrassing. Little whatever.
And we are seeing results.
For Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Albertans know that member lives in an illusion. There are no projects that have been improved by this government and no shovels in the ground. For years, the Liberal government did everything in their power to block pipelines, stall major energy projects, and scare off investment, weakening one of Canada's most critical economic drivers, the oil sands, and Canadians are now paying the price. With a shrinking economy and over 100,000 jobs already lost this year, the consequences are clear. Will the Prime Minister finally reverse course, unleash Canada's energy sector, and help rebuild our economy?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, oil and gas production in Canada is at record highs, up 34% in the last 10 years. We've managed to do that while reducing emissions as a country by 6%. We have found a way to sustainably grow and meet the growing needs of the world, including diversifying needs from allies that are increasingly requiring carbon lower emissions. We are building strong. We have approved Siliciums, the Taylor to Gordondale pipeline, NextGen and Dennis's uranium mines. TMX optimization is underway. LNG projects from Cedar to Woodfibre to Tilbury to LNG Canada 2. They are happening. We are building strong, and we welcome you to join us in that building.
Again, through the chair, the Honourable Member for Tubik Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised Canadians the strongest economy in the G7, but today we are falling behind. We now have the only shrinking economy in the G7 and among the highest unemployment and the highest household debt. In rural communities, families are being hit really hard. Farmers and producers are facing soaring input costs and blocked resource projects that drive local economies. Canada is struggling because of Liberal policies that have stifled growth. When will the Prime Minister turn from these failed policies that have left Canadians behind? When?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the economy, that leader's missing in action. That member there, Mr. Speaker, he's a good man. I respect his faith very, very much. But on this side of the House, we're focused on building a strong economy, the strongest economy in the G7. We are investing in nation-building projects like Port St. John in my riding. We've invested hundreds of millions of dollars that will employ thousands of people. What about Sisson Mine, a nation-building project, a major project in that member's riding that will employ thousands of people? Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we are serious about building a strong economy. That side simply is not. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are hurting.
The Prime Minister promised Canadians the best, yet our economy is performing among the worst. We've lost over 100,000 jobs in the first 2 months this year, and our economy is beginning to shrink. If this is the result of global factors, as these Liberals claim, then why is our economy performing so poorly compared to other G7 countries? Will the Prime Minister work with us to reverse their disastrous economic policies that have made it harder for Canadians to put food on the table?
Here, here. The Honourable Minister for Northern Affairs and Arctic Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we're making life more affordable, not just in big cities, but across Northern and Indigenous communities. We've cut taxes for 22 million Canadians so Northern families can keep more on their table. The Permanent National Food Program is saving families around $800 a year, and we're tackling food costs by building an all-season infrastructure road through the Arctic. We're building the nation and building scalable affordability. We're also reforming Nutrition North. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
The Prime Minister's rhetoric is completely disconnected from reality. He says Canada would be the best economy in the G7, yet he's delivered the worst. 100,000 jobs gone in 2 months. And here's Canada's G7 record. The only shrinking economy, the highest food inflation, the highest household debt, the second highest unemployment. He continues to point to global pressures, but every other G7 country is facing the exact same problems, yet their economies are growing and ours are shrinking. This is a domestic failure made in Canada by this Liberal government. When will they reverse their economic policies that are failing Canadians?
Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition wants to close their eyes and have a fantasy that the trade war will go away, that the tariffs will go away. Doesn't work like that. You got to have a plan. You got to invest in your workers. You got to invest in affordable housing. You got to invest in national defense. You've got to invest in Canadians and their workers, auto parts, like we're doing with federal economic development, many in conservative ridings. Mr. Speaker, let me boil it down simply. They got to believe in Canada, buy in Canada, and build in Canada. They got to try that.
The Honourable Member for Madawaska
These losers.
Mr. Speaker,
look at this.
Accelerating housing
Max
is key
Glick.
to improving affordability. And this is why Build Canada Homes is working with partners across the county to launch more housing projects. Last week, I had an opportunity, along with my colleagues, to take part in an announcement to present excellent news to the people from New Brunswick. I'd like to ask the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure to inform the House about this recent housing announcement in New Brunswick. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Housing. Thank you to the Honourable Member for the question. We do have good news in New Brunswick. Through Build Canada Homes, we are working with partners to deliver 1,200 affordable housing units and potentially up to 1,500 affordable housing units. These projects will be ready to break down ground soon, and nearly half will use modern construction methods to speed up delivery. Together with our partners, we are building more homes for all Canadians.
Member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No community in this country will be protected from hate with legislation that threatens to imprison them for deeply and sincerely held religious beliefs. But that's precisely what Bill C-9 is going to do, a bill the Liberals are forcing to a vote today, despite the cries of millions of Canadians from multiple faiths and civil society groups that this bill will violate their civil liberties. It may appease some people like the Minister of Identity and Culture, who believes you need a black highlighter to read a holy text, but for most Canadians, they want the freedom to live out their beliefs. Will the Liberals do the right thing and reduce this divisive and toxic bill to the rubble bin where it belongs?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, one of the member's colleagues from Windsor included in her flyer those same tired talking points, and the Windsor Star spoke to some of her constituents who said that her flyer was divisive and inflammatory, was insulting to their intelligence, and that they were more concerned with the misinformation from the Conservatives than the content of the bill. Bill C-9, the Combating Hate Act, is designed to protect religious freedoms, to ensure people of faith can practice within their community of faith without fear of intimidation or obstruction, and to make sure that we recognize the moral culpability accountability when a person is targeted for a crime on the basis of their identity. That is good policy that will keep Canadians safe.
Honourable member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad the Liberals are getting their money's worth with their media bailout, but that doesn't eliminate the many concerns that Canadians have raised across this country. The Liberals say when these civil liberties concerns are put at their feet to just trust them, that they won't violate Charter rights because the Charter protects those rights. Yet last week, that very Attorney General appealed the Federal Court of Appeal decision that was ruling the Emergencies Act was unlawful. That this government, despite the promises of Justin Trudeau, did violate the constitutional rights of Canadians. If they truly are serious about protecting these rights, why won't they drop their appeal and drop C9?
Good one. Andrew Lutton is one of my favorites.
Mr. Speaker, it seems the Conservative strategy when they lose an argument is to blame the media and throw spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. Let's actually talk about the facts. Bill C9, the Combating Hate Act, from inception was designed to protect religious freedoms, to combat hate crimes that were taking place in this country, to protect the ability of the Jewish community to go to their synagogues and the Muslim community to go to their mosques and Christian communities to go to their churches, to ensure people could pray freely without fear of intimidation or obstruction. We heard loud and clear. People are sick and tired of hate crimes in this country, and they want their government to do something about it. The Conservative option is to send out fundraising emails.
The honourable member for Sarnia, Lambton, the kids went on.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Emergency Measures Act has been ruled unlawful by the courts twice. The Liberals violated the charter rights of Canadians by freezing their bank accounts when the threat of a national security threshold was never met. They've wasted millions of dollars of taxpayer money, and now they are appealing this court decision for a third time. With an affordability crisis and a jobs crisis, will the Liberals quit wasting taxpayer monies on something that the courts have ruled twice is unlawful?
What's really strange is that, there's so many things that are strange about it, but the media is not covering that story at all.
House Leader.
It's frustrating.
Mr. Speaker, it seems the Conservatives never tire of standing up for the people who illegally occupied the main street of our nation's capital, refused to leave, were implored to leave by local residents, by the police, asked politely, would refuse to leave this.
He's trying to justify them doing it. They've been found guilty twice, and now they're on their second appeal. Steve McKinnon is a loser and a piece of. We'll just move on.
And this capital that Canadians are so proud of. The real question, Mr. Speaker, is why do these Conservatives continue to stand up for the convoy and lawlessness in this country?
The only law broken was them implementing the Emergencies Act. That's the law that was broken. Give me a break. He's a lot to take.
The honourable member for Avalon.
Mr. Speaker, Newfoundland and Labrador are strategically located to bolster Canada's defence strategy. Our new government is committed to spending 2% of GDP on defence this year and 5% by 2035. My question is very simple. Will Newfoundland and Labrador have an opportunity to play a role in the defence strategy? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Speaker, my colleague from Newfoundland and Labrador is completely right. Our province is made for this moment. And that's why I was proud last week to announce a federal investment of $16 million in Newfoundland and Labrador companies to build a stronger industrial base for defence manufacturing in our province. That means good jobs for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, to build more of what Canada needs at this time, to stay strong, secure, and sovereign.
The honourable member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
On the West Coast, we don't just live near the ocean, Mr. Speaker, we live on it. Time on the water is how we connect with friends, clear our heads, and put food on the table. It's practically therapy, and you might even catch dinner. But now the Liberals are putting 9,100 jobs and a $1.76 billion industry at risk with proposed changes to the salmon allocation policy. So I ask, will this East Coast minister show respect for our West Coast way of life by committing right now to maintain priority for public fisheries and certainty of public access to salmon to feed our families?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
I don't need lessons from the other side on standing up for harvesters. What I will remind this member, the opposition, I spoke to this yesterday. We had a one-year consultation on a policy that was not reviewed since 1999. The 1 year open, we will have we're working through what we heard, and we will have a decision in due course, and I will let that member know. No decision has been made.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, Donald Trump's attack on Iran is not only illegal and causing death and destruction, it is spreading economic chaos around the globe. Canadians are now seeing sky-high gas prices, and the cost of products from fertilizers to food are going to soar, bringing pain to every household. Economists predict the world will face massive turmoil for years to come. What does the Prime Minister say to Canadians who are suffering serious financial harm as a result of the senseless war that he and the Conservatives supported?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is deeply concerned by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which is threatening global energy security and economic stability. As we have emphasized, Canada's focus is on ensuring the safe and unimpeded flow of energy and commerce in line with the United Nations Conventions on the Law of the Sea. We urge all parties to de-escalate the conflict, and we will continue to work alongside our G7 and like-minded allies to ensure the Strait of Hormuz remains open and secure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I would like to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Cyril Turton.
All right, gang, we're going to wrap up right there. That's a lot to take. It just is. Like, the Liberals are meaning, like their plans and their policies are very effective. They want these things happening. You can see it happening around the world. As the gentleman in one of our earlier videos showed or explained earlier, Jang, when he was on, they're doing all this on purpose. The Conservatives, in my opinion, got to stop saying that these policies aren't working. They've got to call them what they are. And they're policies that are meant to fail the hardworking people of Canada. Anyhow, that's it, gang. Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney, thank you all for tuning in. We're going to get going. We'll go out on this, though, as we like to do. And that's it. We'll be back tomorrow, gang.
Oh, yeah.
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper, bumper, stomper, boo. Tell me, do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole, and I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romper Room. Bing bong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom.
Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow, and we'll have a couple of videos going out this evening. Thank you all for tuning in. Sorry, it's been a slow couple of weeks. We're getting right back into it. Thanks for watching. Catch you tomorrow. We're out.